Are you ready to connect with distinguished Nigerians around the world? The Diaspora Perspective is here to share the views of Nigerians in the diaspora on burning issues.
From the street of New York, the royal cities of London, and the bustling cities of Europe, Voice of the People Television brings to you a roundtable and collage of interesting views from Nigerians in diaspora.
Join the hosts of the show and some Nigerians in diaspora, Dr. Damages, the flagship, Show, and KJ, as they discuss the experiences, challenges, and triumphs of Nigerians living abroad.
Discussing and analyzing everything from politics, culture, policies, career success, and how Nigerians are staying connected to their roots. Showing every Saturday by 2 p.m. West African time and 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The Diaspora Perspective, giving a voice to Nigerians abroad.
Hello there, good afternoon, and welcome to another interesting edition of Diaspora Perspective Show, home and abroad on Voice of the People Television, VOP. Today is the last day in the month of November, the 30th of November 2024. It's also the last working day. We like moving into December. By this time tomorrow, we'll already be in December 2024, and the bells are already jingling outside. Jingle bell, jingle bell. Oh well, that shows you that the Yuletide is at the corner. I am your host, Chukwuma Okoro. On Diaspora Perspectives, we discuss different political, governance, economic, and development issues in Nigeria. We exchange ideas with Nigerians in the diaspora to see how we can learn from their experiences, people that live in developed nations, to build a better Africa, Nigeria in particular. Oh, well, we have a lot to talk about today. But before we get into the major topics, we encourage you to click on the like button and subscribe to our page. On YouTube, we are Voice of the People TV, and on other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. You can also visit our website, www.vop.ng. Oh, well, today we'll be looking at alleged terrorism financing. Finnish court fixes hearing on Ekpa'S trial. Within last week, the news broke that Simon Ekpa has been arrested by the Finnish government and charged with terrorism, propaganda, financing, and all of that. I think there were about 4 of them that were arrested. Meanwhile, Simon Ekpa remains in detention, and the Finnish court has fixed his trial for a particular date. And here in Nigeria, we've had flurry of comments, people that are saying, no, you don't have to arrest him because it's going to escalate tension in South. Some people are saying, well, it is good that he's been arrested. Let us even know where the problem is coming from. Talking about insecurity in the Southeast. Away from that, we'll also look at the Nigerian Institute of Builders, NIOB, as they address Nigeria's housing deficit, as Gimba Yao, former managing director of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, FMBN, was docked for diverting $65 million meant for the provision of housing for Nigerians. Okay, we'll also look at tackling Africa's climate-related health challenges. A lot is going on in Africa: climate change, health-related diseases, malaria, typhoid, dengue fever, and all of those. Well, before we get into that, I would like to introduce my guest. I'll be joined by Mr. Segun Sokpeto here in the studio. Mr. Segun Sokpeto is the chairman, Accountability, Candor, and Transparency Network. He is on his way. He will soon join me. But I've been joined virtually by the Flagship. Flagship is a clinical research operations lead and business entrepreneur based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We also have KJ. KJ has already joined us. KJ is a media production and training expert and joined from Maryland, United States of America. We also have Show. Show is an IT expert with interest in international politics and development. We're also joined by Forefathers. Forefathers is an engineer involved in the tech with interest in geopolitics, philosophy, and security. Gentlemen, welcome and thanks for being on this show.
Thank you and good morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning too.
Thank you for having us and good morning.
All right, you guys are telling me good morning. I'm telling you good afternoon. That shows you how big the world is. How big the world is, but technology has been able to bring all of us together, and we are saying good morning and good afternoon at the same time. Oh, well, we have a lot to talk about, but before we get into the major topics of discussion, a lot happened within the week. Now, let's have it. Our president, Tinubu, embarked on a 3-day visit to France days after attending G20 summit in Brazil. Now, President Bola Tinubu arrived in Paris, France, for a 3-day official visit. Accompanied by his wife, First Lady Oluremi Tinubu, they arrived at Paris Orly Airport on Wednesday and were greeted by the French Guard Republican. This marks Tinubu's 5th visit to France since taking office 18 months ago. Well, this follows an invitation from the French President Emmanuel Macron, and the visit aims to bolster the already strong ties between Nigeria and France, focusing on key areas such as agriculture, security, education, health, youth empowerment, innovation, strategy, energy transition, and according to the special advisor, Bayo Ononuga, during their stay, President Tinubu and the First Lady will explore the historic Le Invalides Military Museum before heading to Élysée Palace for a meeting with President Macron and First Lady Brigitte Macron. Well, this visit promises to further strengthen the political and economic bonds between the two nations. Now, talking about France and Nigeria. Oh, well, away from that, within the week, a young man, former governor of Kogi State, who's been running away from justice, more like a fugitive, Yaya Bello, he was arraigned in court on Wednesday, November 28, after running away from justice for 10 claimants. Now, the former Kogi State governor is now in custody of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission after pleading not guilty to a 110.4 billion naira corruption charge. Justice Mariana Aneni, the presiding judge, has adjourned the case to December 10, 2024 for a ruling on the bail application. On Wednesday, however, the courtroom was packed with Bello's supporters, journalists, and lawyers. Meanwhile, Justice Aneni refused to start the trial until the room was cleared, delaying the proceedings for about 20 minutes. Bello and his co-defendants, Shaibu Oricha and Abdulsalami Hudu, pleaded not guilty to the 16-count charges. Well, Bello's defense team, led by Joseph Daube, senior advocate of Nigeria, requested bail, but the prosecution counsel, led by Kemi Pihin-Roll, senior advocate of Nigeria, opposed it, stating that the application had expired. The EFCC served the charge sheet just a day before, and Daudu asked for more time to prepare. Oh well, Justice Anani set December 10 for the trial for the ruling, keeping the defendants in EFCC custody until then. And finally, we had good news that the Port Harcourt refinery resumed operations. Well, for about 6-7 times, the Port Harcourt NMPCL told us that the Port Harcourt refinery was going to come on stream, but this didn't happen, and Nigerians were fallen. Is this going to happen in our time? The refinery has been down for close to 25 years, and promises have been made that it's going to come up, and from last year up until this moment, 6 times they failed, but finally, the refinery is on. But there are controversies trailing the opening of that refinery. I mean, people are saying no. What they ferried out of that tank farm was product, that has been there for the past 3 years. And series of controversies regarding the contractor for the 4 months timeline and all of that. Oh well, we also had within the week that Two-Face Idibia, Ola of Lagos, Rarara, and other comedians were sent to India by the NNPCL, by the federal government, to understudy India's CNG operations. And for them to go there, study it, come back, and convince Nigerians on the viability of CNG-powered vehicles. Gentlemen, there are a lot of trending stories in Nigeria, but let's just look at these ones. We are going to take our time, chime in 1 or 2 minutes on any of these topics as we desire, Let's just talk about it, to open way for the major discussions. But before we get in, I'm happy to announce that Mr. Shegu Shekuton has joined me in the studio. Shegu, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Chukuma.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Now, Shegu, okay, let me start with them because you just walked in. We've been talking about a lot of things. Yeah. Now, Flagship, let me start with you. Please, can we have your thoughts, quick takes on any of those topics that we just talked about? The president's visit to France, Yaya Bello's arrest, and Two-Face Idibia, and a couple of other comedians going to France to understudy CNG. And what again? Port Harcourt refinery is up and running. What do you have to say? Flagship, can you hear me?
Can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. Good morning again, Mr. Chukwuman, to
Good morning.
viewers
Good morning.
and all the panelists. So here's what I have to say. When are we going to learn our lessons? Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, they all dumped France and have moved on. And the prime example is Niger, that today the world is looking at as one of the most viable economy that is projected for 2025 and beyond, after the French folks were kicked out. What sort of unholy alliance and relationship is Nigeria trying to build with France at this point? We look at the track record of France in Africa. It has nothing to offer. It has never been good. Today, as we speak, the currency of these Francophone nations are being held in France, not in their country. Look at the trail of bad records in Africa that France has, and Nigeria all of a sudden now is trying to form this alliance with France. It is not going to do us any good in any way. And I'm surprised that the president is just hopping and scotching around countries on mere invitations when there's a lot of problem at home that he needs to fix. What has France got to offer us? Nothing. They offered him a state visit while they are looking long-term on our resources. So this is a way to tell Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso that if you kicked us out, guess what? We have the giant of Africa, and we can put them under our coffers, and we'll use them and go for their resources. There's uranium in Nigeria. There are other great resources, natural resources in Nigeria.
Flagship.
That this, yes.
Sorry, permit me to butt in at this moment, but don't lose your line of thought. Some people have said that, Nigeria's relationship with Britain has not earned us anything. Even our membership of Commonwealth, that we have not derived any benefit from that membership, from our association with Britain and all of that. So isn't it right that our president is trying to gravitate us towards France? In terms of security, in terms of agriculture, in terms of finance and all of that. Recall too that as the president was in France, we had one of Nigeria's biggest banks, Zenith Bank, open shop in France. Isn't it more like a business diplomacy, that is brewing between Nigeria and France?
Mr. Chukwuma, look back at all the alliances we've had. Yes, you're right. With Great Britain, nothing has come forth that is good. Everything we've had are decimations from the Niger Delta all across to the north with our relationship with Britain. My question is, why do we keep going to look for relationship with these foreign nations, Western nations, that really don't have any good for us in their heart?
President Tinubu was invited by Emmanuel Macron.
He doesn't have to take it. It's not an invitation that he has to honor. There is dignity in saying, I have a lot of work to do, I cannot come. But if this visit or meeting is necessary, I can send a representative. The Nigerian ambassador is there in France. He could have handled this. He just came back from Brazil. What did he bring? Nothing. He's traveled everywhere. We've not seen any tangible result of all his trips that he's gone for. Why does he need to honor this? This is how we lose our dignity and respect. If we have to form any alliances at all, we need to do it within our nations in Africa. It is time for African nations to begin to think for themselves on how they could pull together and bring Africa up on the global map, not just a geographical region where they come to collect natural resources from. So I don't think that there is nothing that will come out of it. Zenith Bank is going to open up a branch there. I bet you, Mr. Chukwuma, the terms and conditions under which that bank operates and for the French citizens that is being opened for is totally going to be different from how they do business in Nigeria. They are exploiting Nigerians. Zenith cannot go there in France to do the same thing it's doing to Nigerians. So that really doesn't bring anything good for us. It's just for their own selfish interest. And Macron is offering this platform of, come on, state visit, send his military to welcome him, national guards and all of that, just to appease him. My question is, or my worry rather, is what is going to come after this state visit? These guys will give you $100, but I bet you, at the end of the day, they are taking over 100 million from you. So this is not going to help us in any way. I think that this is fruitless. Tinubu didn't need to honor this invitation. He needed to sit back at home and figure out ways and strategies to fix the problems in Nigeria. With reference to CNG, I was going to speak on this. You know, that technology, Indonesia, as we speak, is dropping it. They're not looking forward to it. It's something that's old and obsolete. We have not really talked to Nigerians about the safety of this technology, how it's been operated. Don't forget where we are in Nigeria. We're in a temperate climate. This technology, gas that we're trying to get our people to use on their cars has not been studied properly. Good research done in Nigeria to see how it fits. There are a lot of safety concerns. People smoke in Nigeria, there is fire everywhere, and you're putting your car gas in it. Who knows what's going to happen? And
that's exactly why they had to send this team to India.
No, what they are doing is trying to convince Nigerians. They are not going. What do they know? Are these experts in the industry? Two-Face and the rest of them. What do they know about this technology? They are entertainers. They've gone there to put up a skit and bring it to Nigeria to tell Nigerians that, oh, it's safe to use it. These are not experts. We need our experts to go and study this technology. In my opinion, this CNG deal, Nigeria is not ready for it. For one reason, majorly, our roads are not good. You are driving on bumpy roads that are bad, and you're putting gas in your car, bumping up and down this road. This thing could shift and get out of place, and boom, there goes the car. We're not ready for it. We need to think about something else to get our technology improved rather than imbibing what other nations seemingly are dumping at the moment.
All right, thanks very much, Flagship. Now, forefathers, can we have your quick takes on any of these topics, any of these trending issues?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Regarding the visit to France, I'm beginning to think that the reason why Tinubu was supported as a leader in Nigeria was to ensure their control of the West African sub-region. Because Chad recently just even announced an end in relationship with the French in terms of their security relationship. And Senegal is doing the same thing. And instead, the Nigerian president is doubling down. And I feel like maybe there is something going on behind the scenes because he made a comment. Whenever these meetings are happening, listen for the security arrangements that they are looking to put in place. Because he tried to mention something about some arrangement regarding security with the French. And we have to be careful because our leaders, they don't seem to understand what they call sustainable security agreements that they have, and they are not serious people. Because if you look at nations that are serious, like the only scenario that France should call President Tinubu, that Tinubu will say, you know what, maybe I should take this call. If they are promising to give us something substantial that will change our strategic position in the world. When we are talking about strategic position, we're talking about ballistic missile technology, nuclear technology, submarine technology, something like that. If they are not offering that, don't bother. The rest is just details. Because any other nation, if you look at all the nations that have emerged in the world, they shared some serious technology with them. And all our relationship will go is, oh, we want some food, we want some investment. What kind of investment? We've had it before. It never got us anywhere. It's not sustainable. You can't build on sand until you have partnership that offers you security. What security offers you is your ability to defend whatever gains you make. Any gain we will make will be eroded. And I fear that what Tinubu is there doing is a stopgap to keep us in place until they are ready again to completely take over whatever they want to take over. Right. What we are seeing right now is a temporary, a kind of lifting of the boots of the West from our necks because of the emergence of the other powers. And that's why it's very important that we learn how to read the geopolitical weather. Because the last time we were in this position was when the Soviet Union was very, very powerful, when you had a multipolar world. When the West was at their zenith of power, we were in hell. Africa was in hell, Rwanda, June 12th, all of them happened during that period. Now again, you see our refineries went down during that period too. What are you seeing now? Our refineries are coming back online. You are seeing strategic things start changing. They are even looking for ways to make good relationship with us. But I don't think they have it in them to give us anything substantial, except we are really useful. If we make ourselves useful to them, which is possible. I'm not going to sit here and say Tinubu is just going there to rip Nigeria to pieces, because one of the arguments I made was that if Tinubu goes there and says, you know what, you see all this stuff going on in the West, in Africa right now, they are all pushing you away. If you decide to give us this technology, give us that one, maybe we'll take care of the environment. And if you allow us to progress, you stop sabotaging our states the way you are doing. You give us favorable deals, trade deals, that you give to China.
Sorry, forefathers, when you talk about giving us technology, is technology given? Can't we develop our own indigenous technology? I mean, we have the best brains in all parts of the world, doing very well, profoundly, phenomenally, in science and technology. Do we have to rely on foreigners to give us this technology? If you go to the US, the basics of technology are always developed by the black people, Africans in particular. Must we rely on foreigners? Is it possible? Is there a possibility of transfer of technology if you cannot steal that technology?
I think that is true, actually. We technically do not need them, but whenever we want to move in that direction, they get in the way. They use what they call the TRIP protocol of the WTO. If Africa invents anything, they could just say, you know what, we've done it before. We have a patent for this. And you can't do anything with it. You can't do anything with that technology. This stuff happened during the COVID-19 situation, where Africans wanted to start manufacturing vaccine. But they said, you can't do it. France was one of them, saying you can't do it because our people who invented all this stuff, you can't use the technology to manufacture vaccines for your people that are dying. So you can see that they have a strong stranglehold on technology. They won't allow us the room to be able to invent and innovate. The only people that they allowed, if you look at the West, and which is the signals what is possible if we wanted to have a relationship with them, is the kind of relationship they have with Japan, the kind of relationship they have with South Korea or Taiwan. It's not strangulating easy to them. Is allowing those nations to develop because they need them to counter this in China and Russia. But in our own case, we don't have any strategic use apart from containing these Russian influences in Africa. Hence, it could be a bargaining chip for Tinubu to say, you know what, if you don't empower us, if you don't allow us to even do our own thing, let's say our people can invent and do whatever they want to do, like vaccines, we can start manufacturing. If you don't allow that to happen, we too will turn on you. And you can see that kind of argument could convince them to do something. And maybe that's why you are seeing Dangote refinery coming on stream. That's why you are seeing maybe Dangote refinery coming on stream. These people have what they call destabilization, these protocols that they put in place to make sure a nation doesn't develop if you are weak. And that is what they've implemented in Africa for a long time. And our leaders sit there and just allow it to happen.
All right. Thank you very much, forefathers. We have quite a lot to talk about. Now, let me come to you, KJ. KJ, can we have your quick takes on any of those topics that we talked about? Quick one, please, before we delve into the major topics. KJ, can you hear me? Okay, sure. Are you there?
Can you hear me? My mic is muted by your studio.
Yes, KJ, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Quick one.
I'm saying that those of us who are jumping up and down and hoping that something good is going to come out of what Tinubu has gone to do, take a look at the investors that he went to woo, the pictures that he took. How many people that are there that are investors from France? How many of them are ministers in Nigeria who went with him? And how many of them are just his aides? Then you can make deduce from that to know how many people or what is going to come out of the meeting. So the Port Harcourt refinery, we have seen all this drama before, okay? And so it's not even new. The truth of the matter is that it has been debunked, and that is the truth. They are just playing to the gallery. Of course, if you think backwards a bit, you find out that the same thing has been repeated during Buhari's time. A man went to Ethiopia and brought Ethiopian airline, painted it to the Nigerian air. Until today, nothing has happened to the man. That's the sector you have seen now in the oil sector. So we are in for a good drama coming in a few years. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks very much, KJ. Now, sure, can we have your quick text, please?
Yes, good afternoon, Chukuma. It's good to be with you once again. Good afternoon to your viewers across the globe. So with regards to President Tinubu's trip to France, I just think it doesn't make any sense looking, from outside, because you can see a lot of Francophone countries dropping or abandoning their relationship with France. So you start to wonder what's in it for Nigeria. I don't necessarily object to the idea of us having relationship with France, but based on the way France has treated, their former colonies, you begin to wonder what's attractive about France. What will make Nigeria want to have this relationship? I mean, if you listen to the speech by the current Ghanaian president, I think he made a speech in Oxford University about 6 or 7 years ago. He spoke, bravely, brilliantly, speaking about, we don't want tokenism, we don't want all this lip service. And the French president was there, sat down, he felt so small. But the same Ghanaian president is now, hobnobbing with France. You see him going to France all the time. So I think there's a shift. The Francophone countries in Africa are dropping France, and France is now trying to build new relationship because they need resources. They need to get it from somewhere. They've exploited all these Francophone countries to the point that their young leaders have now said enough is enough. And now if you look across to the Anglophone countries in Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, as example, we have, some of the older leaders, and they are happy to have any sort of relationship. I'm very skeptical. I wish Nigeria well. I don't want to be a naysayer or, a prophet of doom, but I don't have any trust in these relationships. It's left to see what's going to come of it. I mean, Chad only recently told them to close all their 9 military bases in Chad and get out. So all these things might start to spring up in Nigeria military bases. Like the young Senegalese president said to them, would you allow Senegal or China or Russia to have a military base in France? So the things you will not allow from other people, don't do it to other people. But like everybody else, you're in it to win. So I don't blame France for trying. I can only speak to our leaders to make sure that they defend our interest when they go to such places. And when I mean our interest, I mean our collective interest, not just the interest of the few. Talking about Yaya Bello, I saw the video of Yaya Bello in court. He looked like a rock star about to perform. So many people surrounding him, chanting his name. The EFCC were protecting him, DSS guarding him like he's, some sort of rock star. And you have Fisayo Shoyombo on the other side, a journalist. Thankfully, he's been released. I think this morning he has been released, or late yesterday. He was just abducted by the Nigerian army for God knows what. It was on a project in Port Harcourt. He was arrested. So when you see people like Fisayo Shoyombo being locked away, when you see all the good journalists escaping Nigeria, fleeing Nigeria because they cannot afford to do their jobs without being arrested or hassled, and you see people like Yaya Bello going to court, how many cases have EFCC won? What percentage of the cases have they won? So all this drama that is going on with Yaya Bello, I also don't, I'm not holding my breath regarding that. In terms of Port Harcourt refinery, it is the reason why people are skeptical, myself included, is because of the deficit in trust. Like KJ rightly said, you saw the Nigerian Air. What happened to that? When the thing started, on the day the news broke, I'm one of the few people that just didn't believe it. And I tracked the plane, and it was easy to say that this is an Ethiopian airline aircraft. It went into the Middle East, disappeared off radar for like 3 days. They painted it Nigeria Air, they brought it. They did the water cannon salute, which is reserved for brand new aircraft. So they lied to Nigerians as though it was a brand new aircraft, and that disappeared. Everyone who doubted it, they called us names that we always look out for bad news. But we've been proven right. So Nigerians have a problem trusting the government. Now it's come out that this refinery is not actually refining. They're not refining, they're blending. So it's a blending plant. Blending is different from refining. Just be clear with your people. We don't have an issue if it's a blending plant where you blend or you mix already refined products or processed oils. So in this case, you're saying it's a refinery. And another thing that's come out is the price of crude oil from this Port Harcourt refinery is set at 1,030 naira, whereas Dangote is 970 naira. And this is the same NNPC that were telling Dangote that they would only buy from him if his price is competitive. So you start to wonder, how come your price is 1,030 and Dangote can sell for 970? And lastly, regarding CNG, I don't have a problem with the skit makers and the content creators that Nigeria sent to India. You can see that they brought a lot of attention to it. The only problem I have is, or I will have is, if I find out that those are the only people that we sent to India, there's no problem. Send content creators, Two-Face, Ola of Lagos is plenty, and all these guys, send them there to bring publicity. But please, by God, send experts that can ask the right questions, because it came out that when they were speaking to Ola of Lagos, who's probably not very educated, in that sense, he was asking one of the Indian guys to spell liquefied. Asking him, because he was taking notes, and he was asking, how do you spell liquefied? I don't know if that's true or not, but that's come out. So I worry if we only send content creators and not engineers.
All right, thank you so very much. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Nigeria is a work in progress. I always believe. Work in progress, just like any other nation. It behoves on us Nigerians to make good out of the talents, out of the resources that God has deposited in this country. Now, let's come back to the studio. Shegu, you're up to the minute now. You're up to the speed of what we've been talking about. Well, it seems like everybody is like, the president shouldn't have gone. He's gone too many times. And why are we gravitating towards France and all of that? Nigerians are confused. Please, what's your reaction on that? And probably just chime in on those other issues.
Well, I mean, I think my co-panelists have very, very good justice to this conversation. I think the only thing I would like to add, so that I don't rehash what has been said, because I agree with them completely. Okay. What I would like to add is it's time for us, the people, to begin to drive the conversation. And I know that is hard. We need to begin to let the politicians know what we want and what our expectations are. So, for example, why we should be pulling out of any alliance with any of these European and foreign powers, because we now know almost for a fact that they are only in whatever relationship they have with us for their own national interest, for their enlightened self-interest. They're not there to feather our nest or to make anything better for us. So what's in it for us?
So why can't we couch our own national interest
absolutely
around those bilateral relations?
Absolutely, but if you are in a situation where the balance of power is against you already, these people are they're former colonial powers, they're former colonial masters. Like some of my colleagues were saying, they have military bases, in different African countries. Which African country has any outpost of any sort other than our embassies in any of these countries? So we may not be able to couch our national interests successfully in any kind of bilateral relationship with these guys. What I think we need to do is, as Africans, to come together and understand that for the fact that we're bound together by this geographical accident of being on the same continent and being of the same color and bound by similar cultures, we have to coalesce and develop alliances that strengthen ourselves amongst ourselves so that we can then face the world together and stronger. So that's that. And if whatever the president has gone to do there, I don't think anything is going to come out of it. We're not going to see any money, any serious investment. Whatever investor is going to come to Nigeria, trust me, they will never come because the president visited any country. They're going to come to Nigeria because they've looked at the Nigerian economy and they've identified opportunities and they've identified their return on investment, parameters, and they realize that they will make their money and then they will come. It's not about visits.
So Shegu, I always have this impression, or maybe I was taught in school, in business school, that look, investors look for places where there are problems. And with those problems, they bring solutions. I mean, it's like there's a problem, there's a solution, and that's the business. Shouldn't Nigeria be a haven for investors? Granted that we have so many problems.
Absolutely. Here. Unfortunately, the problems are also so large that they often, more often than not, prevent investments from realizing value. And that's the challenge. That's why we've been unable to attract investments in meaningful numbers. So we need to fix some of those problems by ourselves. For example, nobody is going to fix your infrastructure for you. No foreign power will fix your electricity infrastructure. No foreign power is going to fix your transportation infrastructure. Those are things that you need to do so that investors can come. So I think we need to just, let's begin to understand what we need to do as a continent to strengthen ourselves. So let's leave that and just talk about the other three issues very quickly. For the refinery, I think what has happened is very clear to anybody that is an observer of the events since Dangote
came on stream. You know, so is it a coincidence that the Port Harcourt refinery is suddenly, you know, supposedly functioning just a few months after Dangote started functioning? You know, so I think what's going on there is they're laying the groundwork to continue importation. Let's not fool ourselves. First of all, as soon as the refinery news came out, I said that this is a lie. You know, because the facts and the, if you look at the trail of events, you would see that there is a disconnect. You know, it just happened out of the blues, right? So I knew it was a lie. And then, like Sho was saying, some people, you know, would insult us and say, we're naysayers. Why don't you ever see anything good? Why can't you celebrate when good news comes? And I'm like, look, if I see real good news, I don't need you to tell me. I'll celebrate it, I'll dance and sing. But this is a lie. And now we've been proven to be correct. The refinery is not functioning.
But we understand
it's not functioning.
The NNPCL has been making arrangements to fix this refinery since last year.
Absolutely.
They promised a certain date. They said before
and they
the
failed.
end of December, they failed.
Yeah.
And for 6 times they failed. Now it happened at the 7th time. Is it some form of coincidence? Or do we still believe, do Nigerians still believe that, look, it's some kind of grand performance, you know, just because Dangote's refinery is on and all of that?
That's exactly what it is.
But they've been making plans.
But it's not working, and we now know that it's not working because the reports have come out. Journalists have now gone back there yesterday, to check progress, and nothing is happening. The refinery is dead. And when they spoke to different staff members, they were giving different reasons. Oh, we're dewatering the tanks. Oh, we're doing a calibration. You know, all sorts of excuses. But the truth of the matter is, as we speak now, there hasn't been any loading of any product from those refineries. So on the CNG, I think we'll just quickly, on the CNG, I think we need to get serious as a country. That technology, people are now beginning to leave it behind. I don't have any safety concerns about it. I think that is safe. The strength of the tanks, as long as you don't cut corners, you know, there is no risk of it. In fact, the news out there is that it's safer than petrol, you know. But for me, it's all unplanned. You know, there isn't any clear program towards implementing or rolling this out, you know, in a manner that would affect the concerns. The reason we brought CNG on board in the first place was the removal of subsidies, and that is the CNG is doing absolutely nothing to address that. And taking this Two-Face and Co. to India to go and study that, for me, was a joke. You know, if you want to convince Nigerians that CNG works, provide data and information. We're not stupid. Even the illiterates amongst us who can't read or write, they're intelligent. You know, so if you provide information to them, I think they will get it. I think we can leave it there.
All right, so thanks very much. Gentlemen, thanks very much for our quick text. Now, let's get into the major topic of discussion. Alleged terrorism. Finnish court fixes hearing on Ekpa'S trial. Now, Simon Ekpa, a pro-Biafran agitator, is currently behind bars in Finland, facing charges of spreading terrorist propaganda. Arrested last Thursday, Ekpa has been accused of inciting violence and terror in Nigeria's southeast via social media since 2021. Finnish authorities have set May 2025 for filing charges. Well, despite Nigeria's call for its extradition, investigations by Finland's National Bureau of Investigation are ongoing. Detective Superintendent Mikko Leksonen confirmed that further details remain confidential, with a possible remand hearing in 2 weeks if requested. Now, Shegu, I'll stay with you. Since Simon Ekpa was arrested, there's been a flurry of comments. People said, well, it is good that he's been, in fact, Engineer Baribe, you know, one of the leading lines in the South is Senator representing the South says, look, it is good that Simon Ekpa has been arrested. His arrest is going to douse tension. He's going to de-escalate tension. There will kind of be insecurity will thaw, you know, the peace, you know. There will be some kind of peace in the Southeast. But some people have also said, no, if you arrest Simon Ekpa, keep him in Finland, and keep Nnamdi Kanu in detention, it is more like a combination of factors, variables, that will trigger some of escalation of conflict in the Southeast. Meanwhile, in all of this, the federal government, apart from saying that they want to extradite Simon Ekpa, has been very, very mute. Now, I want to ask you, quickly, do you think that the arrest of Simon Ekpa is going to douse tension in the Southeast?
No, I think it has to the arrest of Simon Ekpa, first of all, is a good thing. I have advocated for that on your show here, a few weeks or a few months ago. I think it's crazy that somebody who is of Nigerian extraction can sit in a foreign country and boast about being the one behind fomenting security challenges in his own home country, and nothing has happened up until that time. So I think it's a good thing that he's been arrested on terrorism charges and all the other charges. However, I don't think that in itself and alone of itself can bring the peace that we would like to see in the Southeast. I think Kanu has to be released. Nnamdi Kanu has to be released. I think a combination of those two will bring about the results we need. We've held on to Nnamdi Kanu for too long, and I think that it has become clear to any fair-minded observer that you may not like the language that Nnamdi Kanu used when he started, but goodness me, that was many, many years ago. The man has matured, and even when he was using that language, it was rhetoric. Nobody can actually link him directly to violence, during that time. Simon Ekpa can be linked directly to violence and to funding of terrorism because he said it by himself. Now he's saying he was joking. Very funny human being, says he was joking. So if we release Nnamdi Kanu, who really is the one individual that a lot of young Igbo people, young people in the Southeast, who they really, really look at and idolize, those young guys, those unemployed guys, the youth that we should be worried about. I'm not talking about people like you. You are educated, you have your own very strong views, and you can moderate them. I have a lot of friends who don't agree with some of the things that Nnamdi Kanu says. But the young guys who are unemployed, we don't even have large unemployment like that, in the Southeast. But those young people who are very impressionable, they idolize this guy. If they release Nnamdi Kanu and allow him to moderate the temperature in the Southeast, in addition to the fact that Ekpa has been arrested and, if possible, extradited to Nigeria so that he can face charges, I think we will see a dramatic outcome in terms of return of peace. This issue of stay at home, that keeps happening. Who's behind that? I think that releasing Nnamdi Kanu will put an end to that.
That's exactly what led to the sit at home. But Shegu, let me ask you, if you release Nnamdi Kanu, because we have talked about what led to the insecurity is because there was, first place, an agitation that even led to the arrest and detention of Nnamdi Kanu. If you arrest, meanwhile, the impressionable minds you are talking about, are people who are not even aware of the histories of the Civil War, the histories of 66, 67, up until the end of the war. These are young men in their 20s and 30s who never heard anything, saw anything about the Civil War. They probably heard. But the marginalization that led to this insecurity, they're experiencing it firsthand. Nobody needs to tell them, that like the Southeast has been marginalized, has been shortchanged, and cut away from the commanding heights of Nigeria's national life. If you release these two people without addressing the fundamental issues, the underlying issues that led to this insecurity, do you think that there will be peace in the Southeast?
I think there are two issues that are involved in what you just said now. One is the issue of the marginalization, and the other is the issue of the Civil War and the history that comes along with that.
Okay.
I think that entire Civil War story, that history of Nigeria, because Nigeria fought Civil War with Biafra. Yes. So it involves all of us that are in Nigeria now were affected by that.
Exactly.
We have not dealt with it. We have not dealt with, at the end of that Civil War, the triple R, reconciliation, reconstruction, and I can't remember the third R, rehabilitation. That was, for me, not enough. It didn't go far enough. The hurt that people are feeling as a result of the things that happened during the Civil War, especially on the Southeast side, have not been addressed with candor and honesty by the federal government of Nigeria, not by individuals, but by the institution. In the same manner that the federal government of Nigeria apologized to the family of Abiola and now made June 12 a public holiday, a national holiday, in fact, not just a national public holiday, but Democracy Day, to recognize that the sacrifice that Abiola made is the reason we have democracy today. That gesture, because it came from the federal government, went a long way in dealing with agitations, so-called, in the Southwest. We need something like that to deal with the outcomes of the civil war. That's one. The marginalization issue. I want to put it to you, sir, that the Igbos, Southeast, are not marginalized. We are all marginalized as Nigerians by the political class. What is happening is that the Southeast is politically marginalized. There's a difference. The Southeast people may not be marginalized because the roads in Lagos, in Ibadan, in Kano, are not any better than the roads in the Southeast. Electricity grid collapsing every week is something that we all experience. We're all suffering from horrible bad governance from the political class. But the Southeast may have been frozen out of that political equation, and all of that. And maybe you can now say, oh, there's marginalization.
All right.
In that sense, I agree with you. Can that be addressed? I don't think so. I think what we just need to do is let's fix our economy. Okay. Let's make Nigeria work for everybody.
So you have raised very, very instructive points. We'll come back to you. Now, let's bring in our brothers in the diaspora. I would like to talk to Sho and forefather separately because they live in the UK. UK is in Europe, just like Finland. I want them to give us a sense of how Nigerians in the diaspora, in the UK, that is closer to Finland than the US, their sense of understanding of what is happening in Finland and across Europe. Simon Ekpa has been in detention, but yesterday, a certain chief of staff, or more like a deputy prime minister, a lady on top of my head, I can't recall that. In the course of the show, I recall her program, her name, declared the Republic of Biafra in exile yesterday in Finland. What's happening in Europe? Does it have effect in UK? And is there a sense of like, oh, Biafra is alive in Europe? Can you help us understand? Let me start with Sho.
To the people who are for Simon Ekpa and there is ardent followers, they will tell you a big event happened in Finland. I saw videos of people traveling, falling into Helsinki and then to Lahti. So it depends on who you speak to. If you speak to a lot of people, even people that are, for Southeast extraction in the UK and are not a supporter of Simon Ekpa and what he's doing, they will tell you they've paid little or no attention to it. And to quickly correct what you said, it wasn't the chief of staff that actually did the redeclaration. It was the Chief Justice. It was a younger lady who spoke with an American accent, probably born in the US, that did the redeclaration of Biafra. My question is, because I'm a Yoruba man from Ogun State, my question is, now that he has been redeclared, what happens for the average Igbo man? 40 states, they ruled out all the 40 states. What happens next is the question, because, does the currency follow? What happens? Where do we go from here? But in terms of Simon Ekpa, I'm not sure his arrest will solve a lot of problems. The chief of staff that you mentioned, she sounds even tougher than Simon Ekpa. So it's like a trend. You arrest one, the next one is worse. You've arrested Nnamdi Kanu, Simon Ekpa seems to be worse. You've arrested Simon Ekpa, the one coming after him, sounds a lot tougher. So she's saying that they're going to burn down Nigeria if anything happens to their declaration and all of that. So I think there should be a holistic approach to this thing. I know that the Nigerian government are trying to claim some victory, saying that it was their pressure on the Finnish authorities that led to this arrest and all of that. But I'm not even sure if the Finnish authority would release Simon Ekpa to them. Because look at Nnamdi Kanu. Right or wrong, charge him to court. Let him go through the process. If he's found guilty, send him to prison. If he's not found guilty, let him go. The way Nigeria's handled in the Kano case, you can't even fault those who are saying they want to leave Nigeria. I mean, it's a simple case. You have a lot of evidence. There's so many, stuff on the internet. There are so many things he said. If you feel it's enough to charge him to court. If you lose, let the man go. What's the point of holding him indefinitely? Looking at that, if you were the Finnish government, would you release Simon Ekpa to them? We've fumbled this case many times. It's similar to all these cases that we keep, failing when you see a Chinese company, not even the Chinese government, going to court all over the world and getting court judgment to seize our properties. If you cannot find Nnamdi Kanu guilty, let the man go. Just release him. What's the point?
Okay, sorry, sure. Let me butt in at this time, but just stay with your line of thought. With this declaration, is there a possibility, anyhow, by any figment of imagination, that the EU can begin to listen to the Biafran government in exile? Is there any possibility about that?
I doubt it, because there's been little, I would say zero, but people who are probably looking with, magnifier will probably find videos. I've not seen any coverage of it by any major media. I didn't see any representative of any major countries at the event. So as it stands now, I don't think they are recognized, but it might be their long and slow walk to freedom. I don't want to fault it, because the way Nigeria is currently constituted, you cannot fault anyone that is saying they want out. So I don't want to fault them. I might fault the approach, I might fault the strategy, but I don't want to fault them for saying they want to leave. There was Sunday Igboho, or let me say Oloye Sunday Igboho, as a proper Yoruba boy, who came to London the other day and said, here's a letter to 10 Downing Street, we want to leave. I'm sure the letter is in a bin somewhere. They're not going to attend to you. Do you understand? So there are a lot of people who are agitating, and I agree with Mr. Shopeton, who said that is because people are suffering. If Nigeria was fair to everyone, you wouldn't see all this agitation. So to answer your question, I don't think anybody's going to listen to Simon Ekpa, not the way he's gone about things, all the braggadocio, all some of the statements he's made, maybe in anger, maybe in frustration, but I don't think any serious nation will take him serious. No.
All right, thanks very much. Now, forefather, you also live in the UK. Can you help us make sense of this declaration of Biafra government in exile and how it's going to impact the agitation back home in Nigeria?
Thank you for that. I think this declaration is a symptom of the people that have lost their way.
Sorry, I didn't get that. I didn't quite get that. People who have lost their...
People that have lost their way. Our people go into the bowels of the beast that put us in this position, and from there declare their own nations and think there is going to be any light at the end of the tunnel. These same people are the ones that came, used our divisions to conquer us, enslaved, colonized, and did whatever they like to do with us. The beast is still consuming our flesh till date. And these our people still go in the midst of them and declare nations. And the same thing with our leaders, like Sho said. Our leaders are just as complicit as these people. They are weakening, because what you have to look at is the people. They are weakening our prospects in life. They are weakening our prospect to be able to make our way in this world. Our passport cannot go anywhere. Our people are the most restricted people from traveling. We are living on basically a dime. A country like the UK with 66 million can spend $1.4 trillion on the economy. 66 million people. Nigeria is making do with 28 billion this year. This is what we are living on. And these elements that do these things, they go overseas and declare their own nation. What do you think they are going to use them for? Those people, they are just going to have it there, keeping you there. The moment Tinubu wants to do something right for the people, let's say Tinubu wants to turn against France, what do you think is going to happen? They are going to activate Ekpa. They are going to activate, just like the way they did before. They will use them as destabilizing agents against the country. Look at Syria right now. The West is supporting even Al-Qaeda and ISIS against the Syrian government. Enemy of my enemy is my friend. That is their approach. That's how they work with Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. Our people are lost, that they don't even know who their true enemy is. If you say you want to create your own nation, have you looked at Cameroon? Have you looked at Benin Republic? Have you looked at Congo? Why is it that almost all the 40 African countries are doing terribly, especially the black ones? Why are they so underdefended? Why are they living on a dime a day? And you think breaking up the country of Nigeria is going to solve that problem? It's not. You're just moving the problem to a smaller, and as a matter of fact, you make yourself more vulnerable. We are looking at a world where powers range in 1-something billion in population. Look at NATO nation. Look at China, 1-something billion. Look at India, 1-something billion. South American continent. They are powerful nations. How are we supposed to survive in this world when we are worrying about tribalism in our country? Our leaders are just as bad. Why is it that they are not trying to Nnamdi Kanu? Why is it that whenever you see like the Niger Delta youth, whenever they are doing what they are doing, people will commit a crime and they will forgive them in Nigeria? It's like bandits. They will catch a bandit in the north or terrorists in the north, and they will say, okay, come, let's rehabilitate you, because the state is weak. You can't have a state without security, and you can't even enforce the law. Machiavelli, one of the things Machiavelli said is that you can't have a nation that is not secure. If you don't have security, then everything else is lost. If you have security, that security will foster the enforcement of laws. And when you are able to enforce laws, then your nation will be able to flourish. The nations that have done this go on to flourish. You have to ensure your security first before anything else, because you cannot enforce the law. So at the core of this issue is that we don't understand that we are facing an existential issue here. Seriously, we have continent killers out there. They've destroyed continents. And we as a people have not woken up to it at all. And we've been through it before. How can we not learn that we have to start working on ourselves? And I think there was a point Show made earlier that was very pertinent. That why is it that we are not even interacting amongst ourselves? France has a GDP of about $4 trillion. Do you know the GDP of African countries, excluding this in Nigeria, or the black diaspora, is more than $5 trillion.
Okay.
We are not even interacting with them. Do you see Nigerians leaders going to African American community to interact with them because of their proximity to wealth and power? No, they don't do that. They would rather run to all the colonizers and people that did us so much damage for centuries. And the point is that our people have not woken up to the truth of their situation. And I thank goodness that some people in the Sahel are beginning to wake up to it and pushing back. And I hope our own people start opening their eyes. That when you see your leaders walking to these countries, they are not going there to bargain for you. They are going there to sell.
All right, forefathers, quickly. Do you think that by May 25, 2025, that there is a possibility between now and then that at the end of the trial, that Simon Ekpa could be brought back to Nigeria? I understand that Nigeria doesn't have an extradition treaty with Finland, but there's an arrangement within the EU that if Nigeria follows that route, they could actually bring him back. Is there a possibility of bringing him back to Nigeria to face trial or even to face punishment if he's sentenced in Finland? Or let's even talk about revoking his citizenship. Is there a possibility of that?
There is a chance that could happen because we know President Tinubu is willing to sell anything to get whatever he wants. But does he even want him? If Tinubu was keen on establishing law and order in Nigeria and making sure people are punished for their offenses, he would have done it with Nnamdi Kanu. They are just using all this is political games and running the clock down. I fear our leaders are just there to pretend as if they are governing. They are basically manning the shop for their true masters to come back and do whatever they like with us again. Because whether he comes back or he doesn't, what is the result we've got so far, or the experience we've had? We have Nnamdi Kanu. They have not tried him, even if they have a lot of evidence to try him. So the government is just as and they are even worse. They are even worse than these people that want to create their own nation and want to leave Nigeria. Even if I believe that it is a wrong way of thinking, but the Nigerian government has the power. If our people too have the power to change the Nigerian government's way of thinking, but that hasn't happened yet because our people don't know the danger that we are in. Personally, I see ourselves having an existential issue. The enemies that came before and colonized and enslaved us, they have gotten stronger. They've not gotten weaker, while we have gotten actually weaker. And from that equation, if you look at that from that dial, you find that whatever they do with Simon Ekpa right now, is the two of them, to me, I see them as the same people. The Tinubu government is sabotaging us. Simon Ekpa is making a mistake. So if they bring him to Nigeria, they are going to forgive him. Even if they forgive him, what does that say about our nation? In the UK, if you step out of line, you are going to end up in jail. If in Spain, the leaders of a separatist group, they end up in jail. Because you know what the leaders understood? You have to care for your people first. Instability doesn't help your people at all. And our leaders don't seem to understand that. They keep the state weak, dysfunctional. And what do you expect to happen?
Thanks very much,
I don't see any difference coming from it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. Now, let's bring in our brothers in the United States of America. Now, KJ, I'll come to you. KJ, you are up to the minute of what we have been talking about. What's your reaction on the arrest and detention and possible trial of Simon Ekpa and how that will impact on insecurity in the Southeast? Let's have a holistic overview of your reaction on that.
I would say, first and foremost, to act for a separate state or to act for self is not against the international law. Just yesterday, a woman in New York was saying because she's agitating against the winning of Trump, she wants to separate. We're going to act to separate, that New York should now join Canada. And the last I know, she had not been arrested, and the news people talked about it. And only, people like us that, normal people, normal Americans that responded to say, we are waiting for you to take your move. So if you ask me in that regard, I think that anybody who is Nigeria, be it an individual or a group of people, have the right to say, we don't want to be part any longer, and that should not be a crime. Now, coming back to what Simon Ekpa has done, much as I don't support what he's doing, and I think they are declaring of Biafra, the re-declaration, doesn't make it that they have become a state. That's what I mean. I followed the distance because I wanted to know exactly what was going down, and it just seems to me like a group of permit me what for lack of a better thought right now, a group of friends who gathered to have a celebration, and they raise flags in America and any other part of the world apart from Nigeria. You can use any flag. You can even host it in front of your house. Nobody bothers themselves about that. It's not a crime. So, but I think, talking seriously, the people who, just like Sho said, the people who, planned it out, didn't plan it out the way I think that the people who are serious, because you don't have any international media coverage. It was blank, all around the world. There was not even the CNN of this world, or even the NMSBC that was there. No, not even the African media, not the Nigerian media, except the ones they publish themselves. So that is a minus for them, because right now, not everybody know that Biafra have declared, apart from those who were in the attendance. And I must say they did a lot of publicity, because there are a lot of Nigerians that were there, not just Igbos, other tribes also were there, who came to accept that Biafra had been declared. Raising of a Biafran flag doesn't make it a nation. It doesn't also make it to become a nation among the nations of the earth. It doesn't also make it to be accepted. If you wanted acceptance, you would have invited the nation that you are, where you are declaring it. I mean, I was looking out for a Finnish representative. There was none. There was no US representative. There was no UN representative. There was no AU representative. So who were you declaring it for? And for what purpose are you doing it? So in other words, their branding or their planning was a bit not, maybe because, again, they said they planned to do it on the 2nd, but they had to move it to the 29th. Now, the thing again I want to say, some people have been carrying, because I follow this news, some people have been carrying the fact that Ekpa denied being the Prime Minister of the Republic of Biafra. That's not true. Because if that was the case, and his team wanted to help him throughout that event, they kept saying, calling his name as the Prime Minister of Biafra in exile, Biafran government in exile. So if that was the case, they wouldn't have used that term any longer. They would have maybe used a better term to describe him, because that would be now evidence against him if it was really true that he denied. But I don't think that was true. That was just a media hype in Nigeria.
Okay, Kejo, quick one. How do you think that his arrest is going to impact on security in the Southeast?
It's that exactly what the first speaker and most of my have said. The truth is, the arrest of Nnamdi Kanu did not stop insecurity in the East. For 4 years now, we've witnessed that continuous insecurity in the East. The arrest of Simon Ekpa is not going to stop insecurity in the East. My concern is a government that has been sitting in place is refusing to talk to over 30 million people who are agitating that they want to leave, to sit down on the table and say, okay, how do we make it comfortable for you people? And it's not only for the Igbos. The Igbos are only the ones who are coming out to say this is where we want to be. But other tribes also, other nations, as I would like to call them, who are inside the Nigerian contraction right now, have their own agitation also. So it is nothing too far that a government who is serious about the life and the progress of its nation will not call these people to sit down on the table and find a way to sort out these things. Arresting Simon Ekpa will not stop it. Rather, it will bring more Simon Ekpas and more other people. And look, the truth is, why is the way it is? Because not a lot of people, believe in Simon Ekpa. the brother will believe in Nnamdi Kanu. So that's why it's a bit, not a big news right now in the East. But it's not going to bring it to an end. If they want to end insecurity in the East, they should withdraw the army, they should withdraw their Air Force, they should withdraw their Ebebagu and all their so-called unknown gunmen that are using to terrorize the people of the East in the name of IPOB. IPOB don't have any troop in the city. Their people operate inside the bush where they're guarding people from, guarding the farms.
All right. KJ, I like the fact that you talked about the silence of the government. Now, some people have also said that the government is ambivalent because they sit at home. The insecurity in the Southeast is far removed from the centers of commerce, that affects Nigeria, like Lagos, Abuja, Kano, and all of that. And that if the Igbo people, if the Southeasterners want to kill themselves, if they want to go hungry, if they want to sit at home, that is their business. Now, does it amount to some kind of the government, being complicit in what is happening in the Southeast?
Well, that's what I've been saying all the while. A government that's concerned about its citizens, if not because, we have been perceived to be people who are not a real people. Because if the Igbos are real people and real Nigerians, you'll be concerned. I give you an example. Mr. Yahaya Bello went to court yesterday, and the judge insisted that the case not go on because his lawyers were not represented. But on the 29th of June last 2021, Nnamdi Kanu was taken to court, and his lawyer was not there. And Binta Nyako, went on with the case and remanded him in prison. His lawyer wasn't present. But Yahaya Bello, who has stolen the people's money, was in court. The judge insisted that the case can't go on until his lawyers come. So if people like us can see the injustice done to one all the time, you use different spoon to serve a different people. And when it gets to certain people, you change it. And you think that we will accept that we are part of the country. It doesn't happen that way. Okay. Let me tell you something. I'm sure you know this. That if you're talking about insecurity, security in Nigeria as a whole, the Southeast is about the third or fourth in the line. The Northeast is there. In fact, the whole of the North is more, has more insecurity issues. But how come all the attention is in the South, in the Southeast? How come the East is the particular place that the government is paying attention, the army is paying attention? Let me tell you, I get another thing. The Nigerian government is trying to lay claim to what the Swedish government is doing with Simon Ekpa. Does that make sense? You are saying they should extradite him based on what law? The man that has even denounced Nigeria is not a Nigerian citizen. He has torn his passport. Okay, so even if today the Swedish government, the Finnish government said they are not going to accept him, he's had the right to become a UN citizen. He asked for international refugee status. Okay. And you can't see.
KJ, let me stay with you. Everybody seems to be condemning the sit at home and the insecurity in the Southeast, and probably how the way Simon Ekpa and his followers are pursuing the agitation. In what ways do you think that the Igbo people, the Southeasterners, can go about this agitation for self-determination? If everybody is condemning this route that they are taking, in what other ways do you think they can use, to secure their freedom?
Very good question. Very good question. You see, my brother, I would say the same thing. Which other way have we not tried? Before the late, the first minister of external affairs died, he went to beg Buhari to hand him over. The elders of the Igbo land have gone. The representatives of the Igbo land have gone. The people who are in government have gone. The people themselves, the Igbos themselves, have protested, and nobody is hearing anything. They said, okay, Buhari said, let's leave it to the court. 3 court judgments have given in Nnamdi Kanu's favor. It was not obeyed. So which other way did they want the people? Because we have tried in peace, you're not listening. We have tried in struggle, you're not listening. And now you keep. Do you know how many lives are wasted in the East? Anybody that is wasted is said to be an IPOB terrorist. But however, terrorists in Kaduna terrorists are taking part of Sokoto State. Terrorists have divided Niger State, running some of these places. You don't go there. And nobody's going there to make sure these people don't take over. But in the East, where the government is in place, no local government have taken over. Nothing. People are going about their normal business. That is where your attention is. Does it not call for a rethink of strategy by the government, or if they are really sincere in their approach? That's the question we should ask ourselves. What other way do they want the Igbos to approach this? Because those we felt were respected politicians in Igbo land, I won't call them leaders, respected politicians in Igbo land have gone to put a word. You have refused to listen to them. The last person was Ife of blessed memory, who died just a few days, months ago. He still went, and the same thing. He kept asking for that. It wasn't ever granted. Okay, but the same, crime that he's accused of, the same thing that other people have gone and they're walking scot-free. Just 2 days ago, we heard about how many thousands of Boko Haram guys have been forgiven and pardoned, and they're being resettled and given job and given uniform. And these are people who have continuously held Nigeria, in a danger point for the past 10 years. They have been released into the society, and most of them probably be absorbed into the army and sent to the east. And then you want us to keep quiet and wait for them to, give our necks for them to. It's not going to happen. So let us sit down and have a good discussion across the table, and then we can know how to go forward.
All right. Thank you very much, KJ. So much to talk about. Looks like there are different laws for different people. Now, let's bring in Flagship into this conversation. Flagship, in what ways do you think that we can have peace in the Southeast? Not just the Southeast, but in Nigeria. What do you think? How much responsibility should the government take for what has gone wrong, for what is going on in parts of the country? Southwest, a group of people have also asked to leave. In the middle belt, there is crisis. In the north, there is crisis. How much responsibility do you think that the government should take in what is happening in and around Nigeria?
Well, I think that the government has a lot of responsibilities, if not all, that is saddled on them. You see, the best way to begin to figure out a way out of this problem in Nigeria is for us to, first of all, agree that we have a problem. When we get to that point that we know we have a problem and quite a lot of people are marginalized in Nigeria, with the focus majorly on some regions, then we can begin to track a way out of this problem. The next step would be to sit down and have a dialogue. At this point, what we're doing is kicking the can down the road. And it's not going to end as long as we continue to kick that can down the road. We need to come together and begin to figure a way to chart out a course out of this problem. Identify what angers each region. What do we want? What are we looking for? And then begin to compromise where there needs to be compromise. And areas that we cannot compromise on, we come to agree to disagree to move the nation forward. We cannot deny the fact that there are a lot of regions, people, tribes in Nigeria that are more secluded out of what Nigeria is today, and the system in Nigeria as it is not favorable to them. And I would speak majorly to the East. You can't tell me that they are only politically marginalized. Beyond politics, the people are greatly marginalized. If you think they are not, then tell me, why do we have soldiers in the East that are permanently stationed? Tell me why the lives of the people are intruded into on a daily basis, that they can barely go around doing their own business. So we have to come to the point where we look ourselves in the eyes and tell ourselves the truth, that there is a problem. The system is not working. Let's go put this fire out from the bottom and not from the top, because the efforts that we have put in so far has not yielded any good result. It's dividing us to more. And that is what is resulting to people like Simon Ekpa'S coming out to agitate for separation, Sunday Igboho coming out to agitate for separation, and Nnamdi Kanu and the rest of them, and the new ones that are coming up. Until we get to that point where we identify the fact that we are not even in the way we treat ourselves, then we're not going to make any much progress. We'll continue to see this continued agitation that will only result in reducing the economic power of Nigeria, security and safety of the people.
Flagship, the same government that seems to be silent turns around to say that The unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable. What does that mean?
That's where we are being deceitful to ourselves. And I think that this same government that is saying this really don't understand what is going on in Nigeria. They don't know how to go about it. So when you say the unity of Nigeria is not negotiable, my question is, do you even know if Nigeria is unified? As it is right now, we are not. We are divided on all sides. And that's why we cannot speak the same language except when it comes to one thing, sports. But other than that, economics, belief system, politics, name them, we are divided. So we have to come to understand that there is a problem with reference to our unity. And when you say that it's not compromised or cannot be negotiated, I think that's where the bone of contention is. Right. Sometimes you need to take apart the engine to be able to put it back together in the right way it should function. So let's stand out to tell ourselves the truth, that we really have a problem and we are not unified. All right. Any way, shape, or form. When we get past that, then we're looking at a solution to all the problems that have confronted us.
All right, thanks very much, Flagship. Now, let's come back to the studio. Shegu, as a wrap on this topic, I mean, it's very clear. We are talking about the silence of government, and people are also saying that we should talk. For how long are we going to talk? We talked in 1990, what was it? Obasanjo was 2007. Was it 2007, 20? Oh no, we started with 1995 with Abacha, you know, then under Obasanjo, sat down again, Jonathan sat down. Yet in all of these, certain people are saying, no, this thing is not going to work. It has to remain like this. And I like the fact that you said that it is not only the Southeast that is marginalized, that the average Nigerian is marginalized. More like a class struggle between the have and the have not. How can we get out of this chokehold? Can you help us? Is there a way that we can get out of this chokehold? Because it looks like Nigerians are being suffocated.
Yeah, look, this question is a question that I think is the question on the burner right now for a lot of Nigerians. I think we've got to the point where we're saying to ourselves, which way? You know, I have this conversation a lot amongst my colleagues within civil society, and I find that there's a lot of despondency. People are giving up. People are saying there's no way out, you know, because ordinarily you would think that the solution to this is a change of government under the provisions of the law, not by anything illegal, which would only be either by election or impeachment or whatever.
No, but essentially the problem is not the problem of this government. This has been going on for a very long time. So it's a problem of the Nigerian state. Absolutely. So how do we unbundle?
So I think that we are not ready yet for that unbundling. We're not ready for that solution. We have a complicit middle class elite, because in any country, if you check all of the countries, all of the nations of the world, and when progress happened that was not violent, it was driven by an elite consensus. People that have access to power, people that have access to authority, either in government or in business or in other spheres of influence, including religion, coming together to say, this far and no more, Unfortunately, as a country, we're very far from being able to arrive at any kind of consensus amongst the elite, because the elites have been captured and are divided.
Is it that the elites captured themselves? Because when we talk about the elites, exactly, intelligentsia more like.
If you include...
Or is it that they are having a free ride?
If you include the government and public political officers as part of the elites, then you can say the elite captured the elite. But the point is we are divided, and until we are able to speak with a united voice against certain issues. Look, the day that we unite about any issue, whether it's electoral reforms or whatever, we will get our way. The problem is that we are unable to unite because, these politicians, they understand us thoroughly. They've done a complete psychological evaluation of the average Nigerian mind, especially the elite people, and they've captured us. So we need to break free of that capture until we have suffered enough. Unfortunately, our elite live in a cocoon in a bubble where they are very fine.
Yes.
You know, so until something breaks that, we'll probably continue like this for
All right, thanks very much, Shegu. I always reduce these things to three things: people, power, and politics. You know, anyhow you turn it, 360 degrees is people, power, and politics.
Absolutely.
Now we'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Nigeria's housing deficit. Please stay with us, don't go away.
Are you ready to connect with distinguished Nigerians around the world? The Diaspora Perspective is here to share the views of Nigerians in the diaspora on burning issues.
From the street of New York, the royal cities of London, and the bustling cities of Europe, Voice of the People Television brings to you a roundtable and collage of interesting views from Nigerians in diaspora.
Join the host of the show and some Nigerians in diaspora, Dr. Damages, the flagship, show, and KJ, as they discuss the experiences, challenges, and triumphs of Nigerians living abroad.
Discussing and analyzing everything from politics, culture, policies, career success, and how Nigerians are staying connected to their roots. Showing every Saturday by 2 p.m. West African time and 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The Diaspora Perspective, giving a voice to Nigerians abroad.
All right, welcome back and thanks for staying with us. If you are just joining us, you are watching Diaspora Perspective Show on Voice of the People Television, VOP. Now, let's talk about Nigeria's huge housing deficit. It's no longer news that Nigeria has a huge housing deficit, estimated to 20 to 25 million units. This housing crisis is driven by numerous factors: high land and building materials cost, inadequate infrastructure, frequent building collapses, lack of affordable mortgages, and complex permit processes are just a few of the culprits. Now, the situation is further compounded by fluctuating foreign exchange, high unemployment rate, widespread poverty, security concerns, corruption, and low purchasing power. As if these challenges are not enough, some people have seen nothing wrong in fund misappropriation. Oh well, former Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria CEO Gimba Yao, along with ex-FMBN director Bola Ogunshola and T. Brent Fortunes Nigeria Limited, the MD, Tari Foros, are facing serious charges from the ICPC. They allegedly misappropriated $65 million intended for building 962 housing units at the Goodluck Jonathan Legacy City in Abuja. Wow. Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja disclosed that Yao approved 3.78 billion naira to a contractor and was unable to complete the project, resulting in unfinished work and significant financial losses. The ICPC's 5-count charge against them also includes breaching the Public Enterprises Regulatory Commission Act and money laundering charges. Despite they are pleading not guilty, the court granted them bail and scheduled the trial for February 6, 2025. Meanwhile, Nigerian authorities have been demanding Yao's extradition for prosecution. Oh well, Justice Omotoso's decision sheds light on this high-profile case, which continues to unfold. Gentlemen, we are at it again. Housing units. Nigeria's housing deficit estimated to be between 20 to 25 million units. Now, I want to paint a picture. There's a part of Lagos known as Festac. Sure, you know Festac. You know, even our brothers in diaspora know about Festac. Now, Festac was built in 1976, you know, and it was used to host the Festac 77. Over time, it has expanded up until what they have as Phase 4 now. Now, this Festac, you know, is a housing unit, and it accommodates about 4.777 million Nigerians. 4,777,000 Nigerians are housed by Festac. Now, if you divide Nigeria's population of about 220 million by the 4.77 million that live in Festac, what we need is just about 46 types of Festac all across the country. Why hasn't that happened? Festac 77 is for something years down the line, yet we have housing deficit. In some places, you need to visit some places to see how Nigerians live. We are not talking about the hinterland, the villages. We are talking about in city centers. you know, where the sewage is not managed, there's no drinking water, and all of these things impact not just on housing, but on our health too, diseases, you know, waterborne diseases, you know, airborne diseases, and all of that, meningitis, heat, and all of these things. And we begin to hear that a certain man took away $65 million. Shegu, can you help us understand, you know, how $65 million could have affected, you know, they were supposed to construct 992 housing units in Abuja. Can you help us understand? You know, help us make sense of what that amount could have done. That is not a loan. No. So Yaya Bello is standing trial for 110 billion naira in one instance, and in another, $84 billion. So many governors, ministers standing trial. These monies are not recovered. When we recover paltry 30 billion naira, I mean, we go to CNN, we go to network news to announce these things. Yet, we are facing a housing deficit of between 20 to 25 million. Please, let's have your reaction.
I mean, we have a deficit across the different types of infrastructure that any ordinary country will require to develop. We've got a deficit. I mean, you want to talk about power, that we have not been able to move from 5,000 megawatts of distribution in 25 years. We've just not been able to cross it, you know. Is it transportation? The fact that our road network have not grown significantly in over 30 years. You know, so the housing deficit is just another of the symptoms of the fundamental sickness that Nigeria suffers from, which is a combination of corruption and terrible leadership. You know, and I think, you know, you have to start from terrible leadership because if you have good leadership, corruption will be dealt with. It doesn't take much, just like you've said, you know, you've analyzed it. It doesn't take much to deal with this so-called housing deficit that we're talking about. There is more than adequate resources to deal with this, whether you're talking about land or money, you know. The challenge that I think we have and why we've not been able to deal with this, forget the stolen money. That's, I'm sorry to say, but that's the story of our lives. You know, like you said, Yaya Bello is there, he's in court. The National Health Insurance Scheme had its own scandal.
Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs.
All over
and when
the place.
Billions
all over the place, and they're all eating money. You know, when I say eat, my wife will say, how can human beings eat money? I say, that's what we call it in Nigeria. They eat money. You know, so forget about that for a second. If we had an economy where enough Nigerians have enough income to dispose, to acquire property, if we had a structured financing system that can help anybody with a reasonable income level, so you need income level, you need a structured finance system, because houses, whether no matter how big or small, are expensive relative to your day-to-day living expenses, right? So you need help. So if we had people with enough income, you had a structured financial system, then you'll be able to attract private capital. All of our friends that are on this conversation, in this, you know, they are diasporans. We can easily come up with a property, a real estate diaspora fund of some sort, where you mobilize resources, financial resources, to build.
Exactly. The point I'm trying to, I want to make now, based on what you said, we have realtors there, we have property people. Unfortunately, they don't play at the level of the how can I put it now? The housing, low income people.
Yes.
I mean, you go to low cost housing. If you go to places like Lekki, you see a 3-bedroom apartment going for like 4-5 million naira per annum. Now, but we had a governor shortly after First Act 77. Pa Jakonde made on the scene and became governor of Lagos State. The man did so much. The other side of First Act is an extension of what we call the Jakonde Estate. There's one in Iyanepaja. But people, his successors, you know, didn't continue in that direction. What is the problem?
The Lagos State government recently embarked on something similar. They called it the Lagos Homes. And I know a few people that actually benefited. But you see, majority, in fact, not majority, all of those people are either middle class or upper middle class. The low-cost people, the people at the bottom of the pyramid, who really should be our concern, our biggest concern. Because, you know, there is this truism, this saying that a society will be judged, how developed the society is or how advanced the society is, will be judged by how it treats its most vulnerable, right? So those are the people that we should focus on as a country and as government. But I'm saying that because there is an income problem, because we have too much poverty.
Okay.
People cannot afford. So the realtors that you talk about, they will not build low-cost housing.
So why wouldn't the government do that?
So it has to come down to government to delve into those areas. But even if government does it,
it goes back to the same people at the top.
It goes back to the same people at the top. And then how will they finance it, and all of that. So ultimately, we're talking about poverty and how government can alleviate poverty to the extent where financial structures can be built on top of reasonable income earned by ordinary Nigerians.
All right.
To then put.
It's good that we have on the panel our brothers in the diaspora. Let's hear from them whether they have this kind of problem. Gentlemen, we are not going to talk about what you already know that is going on in Nigeria. We are going to ask you to help us understand how you people live there. Do you have housing problem? Do you have housing shortages and all of that? And if you don't, how were you able to overcome these things? I mean, you people should have some kind of history, even if you were not there, when those housing estates sprang up in parts of America and UK. But at least there's a history to it which you understand. Now, let me come to you, Flagship. Flagship, you live in Atlanta, Georgia. How much housing deficit do you have, and how do you people treat the problem of housing for the average American?
Well, one thing that we do here in Georgia, I would speak for Georgia majorly, is we keep count of what the size of our population is. And that helps the government to project on what kind of distribution of resources they'll need to make within the states and amongst the people. Now, with reference to housing, yes, there have been times where there were housing deficit, and what the government did was to set up buildings, projects that they built, well, they call them projects, homes that they built for low-income earners. And when these projects are being set up, there is appropriate and carefully maintained accountability. The leadership, the people that are put in front of this project are people that are skilled. They know what the problem is and they know what the solution is that needs to be put in place to fix it. And there is a time frame for which these projects are allotted. So if the government says we are having a housing crisis and the population has grown by 10%, and we need to make homes that are affordable for the citizens of the state to buy and get a place to live, if money is appropriated, the person or the company or the contractor or whoever it is that handles that project, first of all, must have the ability to execute the project from start to finish. They do not just give out the money all at once. If they say it's going to cost $300 million, for example, the government does not just carry the $300 million and hand it over to the contractor and say, here it is, go build the homes. They give you a percentage. You must be able to execute the project with your finance as a company from start to finish. When you finish it, then the balance of whatever that amount is then paid to you after the homes or the project has been fully inspected and certified as good and complete, acceptable by the state. Okay. When this is done and complete, then you get your final and full payment. We don't just hand money over to people. And even at that, if you say it's going to cost you $300, the government is looking closely at what makes up that $300 million.
Okay.
And if they think that is bloated, they still check it.
All right. Flagship, hold on to your line of thought. I want to ask you, when these houses are finished, how do they do their allocation? Is it possible that someone in government, highly placed, is going to get like 2, 3, 4, or 5 and distribute to his relatives or resell to other people? How do you people do the allocation?
So again, it's not possible. There's no government official that sits over this project. It's a project of the state. It is overseen by the state. Not one man in the state, not any politician has control over it. Okay. When these projects are completed, they are given based on income. If you are not, again, they are low housing estates or buildings that are built. And for you to get one, you have to apply for it. They have to see what your income is. Okay. And then if you qualify for for it, you're given. But it is not handled by any one person in government that apportions it or say, keep 1% of the buildings for me, I'm going to give them to my relatives or sell them or use it for my own self.
All right.
It's not done.
All right.
It's found.
All right. Thank you very much, Flagship. We have to move on because we are pressed for time now. Now, KJ, let me ask you, in Maryland, how do you people handle mortgages so that you can accommodate the low-income people? You know, I mean, if in Nigeria we call them the poorest of the poor. I don't know if you have poorest of the poor there. So let me just use the word low-income earners. How does the government handle mortgages for this kind of people? And again, let us even know if you have housing shortages in Maryland.
Yeah, we have housing shortage. We have about 96,000 units of housing shortages in Maryland. And the new governor has already given approval. He has already signed that. Because you see, here, they look at what's supposed to be done and they go about doing it. They may not achieve the best of results or get it all done during their time.
Sorry, KJ, before you move on, let's understand what you people mean by housing deficit. Is it that when you talk about 96,000, is it that people are sleeping on the streets under the bridges, or is it that two families are sharing one apartment, or what? What does that mean when you say?
It simply means that when you leave the university, they are using it against the population they have. When you are supposed to have after the age of 18, you're supposed to be able to afford your own home. You're not supposed to be living with your parents. You know, and so they look at that and use that as yardstick for measuring how much of house they will need. And it's not because if you come to Maryland, people are sleeping. Anybody sleeping in the streets is because they don't want to have a house. Because even with that, government have houses, townhouses as they call them, that you can actually use while you are waiting to get an accommodation. But what is different here is that.
And sorry, KJ, you said something very important. Now, when people live in those townhouses, I mean, they don't convert them into permanent homes, right?
No, it's not. It's for a time that it's a stopgap, you know.
And it's regulated. It's regulated by government.
It is regulated, and you see what Flagship says is very, very important. You don't see anybody. You just apply for those things, and if you are qualified, you get the mail sent to you that you are qualified for this. And if you're a first-time home buyer, they say it here. If you're a first-time home buyer, they give you, there are agencies and there are other, private bodies that will want to give you a particular loan to first buy your, some of it goes from maybe $10,000 to $30,000, even to $50,000. They give you to first-time buyer. Okay,
KJ. Sorry, KJ. I'll come back to you. We are pressed for time now. Let's bring in Sho and forefather. Now, Sho, you live in the UK. I asked you this question the other time about, when we're talking about barracks, for police and soldiers. And I also want to understand, how do you have housing estates in the UK, and how do you handle the mortgages? I mean, I want the average listener at home to understand how you people live. Do you squat? How much is your what percentage of deficit do you have in the UK? I don't know the part of UK you live, but for instance, let's say you are living in Wales. What is the housing deficit like?
All right. So thank you. I live in Kent. That's in England. So there's a housing deficit in England as well, in the UK as well. I think it's about 4 million unit deficit. But the difference is similar to what KJ explained. In the UK, there are shelters, we call them shelters here, where government provides temporary accommodation for people. It might not be the luxury you expect, but it's somewhere you can lay your head at night and sleep and, preserve your dignity. Despite that, you'll still find people who choose to sleep rough because, drug addiction and other things. But in terms of the government providing shelters, you have shelters provided for people, and it is free of charge for people to have a wash and lay their heads, so that happens. In terms of estate, yes, we do have estates that are built by, they're like PPP. So you have Barratt homes, you have, different builders, without advertising them. And what tends to happen is even when they build this estate, you can get like maybe 200 units. but there's an agreement that out of this unit, there are some that are built with cheaper quality stuff, still safe. And so when I say cheaper quality in terms of the furnishing, so it could be the gas cooker, could be the washing machine, could be the tiles, the flooring, that are slightly cheaper, that are reserved for people you call council tenants. So the council tenants are tenants that the council, the government are their landlords. It is subsidized. Some people don't even pay at all. So you have that built. So what they also try to do is to integrate the have and the have not. So you drive into an estate, and you will notice most times that towards the back of the estate, if you drive around to the back of most of this estate's development, you will notice an instant difference, fridges left outside, washing machine left outside by those sort of people. So the government have made plan to make sure that when we're building, we cater for those who can never afford a mortgage. Not everybody would own a house. It's not a crime not to own a house. I think it's an African thing or Nigerian thing, or at least I can speak for Yoruba people. Okay. The minute you travel, they start pressuring you to come and build a house. Your mates have built a house. I made the mistake of finding out what it would cost to get a decent property in Ibadan or even Lagos, because I grew up in Ibadan, born and raised in Ibadan. And when I heard about the mortgage system, you pay 20% and you have to pay the rest in 6 months. I said, sorry, I might as well pay the whole thing. That's not a mortgage. In the UK, your mortgage is about 25 years. So if the house is £600,000, £700,000, you're expected by the lender, in most cases a bank, to bring 10% upfront. So you need to find £70,000 out of your £700,000. And you need to be able to prove to the bank that you have a decent job, you and your partner, or just you by yourself. You can afford to repay the loan over the next 25 years while also buying more equity. So in the next 25 years, what you do is you pay the bank and you also pay to buy the house. So in 25 years, the house becomes yours. All right. So that's affordable, not 6 months mortgage.
All right. Thanks very much. So we are desperately running out of time and we have to move on because we still have another topic to talk about. Now, quickly, forefathers, I said something about how Festac accommodates like 4.7 million people. You are an engineer. Is it difficult to have 46 Festac across Nigeria? I don't know, by the way, if you know Festac, but I'm not sure there's any young man, at your level that wouldn't have known Festac while staying here in Nigeria. Is it a difficult call for us to have 46 Festac spread out in 36 states of the Federation? How difficult can it be?
I think you are correct. It's not as difficult to do. It's just we are poor. You don't have enough money. $27 billion for a nation of about 200 something million people. You find that it's difficult. Here in the UK, you have the planning commissions that they tend to anticipate issues and start preparing for it. And I don't want to come across as if I'm trying to advertise Western systems so that our people, from the point of view, want to go there. I want, when we are talking about this thing, they should understand that that is the kind of stuff they should be striving for in Nigeria. The housing market here, they have insurance, they have mortgages, they have systems that have been put in place to ensure people can be able to secure properties, build their own properties if they need to, so that the housing issue is not a serious problem. Without those systems in the West, there will be the crisis that they have now, which they do have housing shortages, would have been a lot worse. Their population is not growing as fast as that of Nigeria. All right. So that is the second challenge we have. So if you look at what is going on in the world, because I tend to look at things on the macro level, they have almost endless supply of cash in the West.
All right, forefathers, I'm going to stay with you, please. I'm going to stay with you because we want to talk briefly about climate-related health challenges in Nigeria. Stay on our call because I'm coming to you. Africa, a continent rich in culture, biodiversity, and resilience, faces an urgent and growing threat of climate change. Its impact goes beyond weather patterns and natural disasters. It is shaping health outcomes across the continent. Now, rising temperatures and unpredictable rainfall lead to water scarcity. Children gather water from a sparse, drying riverbed, affecting both agriculture and access to clean drinking water. This also exacerbates malnutrition and waterborne diseases. Now, climate change also creates a favorable environment for vector-borne diseases like malaria and dengue fever. As mosquito populations thrive in warmer climates and the communities face heightened health risk, this becomes more and more risky for Nigeria. Now, access to clean water should be enhanced through sustainable technologies such as solar-powered water purification systems, ensuring communities can stay healthy despite the changing climate. Now, I'm staying with you, forefathers. Can you help us understand how, because these two things are related, decent accommodation, climate change, pipe-borne water availability, management of sewage and all of these things. How do you people manage it there in the UK? And I would like for you to, wrap it up with your concluding thoughts, because we are desperately running out of time and we have to move on. Forefathers, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead. Quick one.
Yeah, my brother, sufferhead is our problem. Climate change is not our problem. Sufferhead creates an environment where you can't even clean your gutter and all that stuff. Like I said, we don't have the necessary resources to be able to take care of our environment. And we should be careful about buying into the narrative of the West, because in reality, if there is a climate catastrophe today, who has more to lose? They have more to lose than we do, and they created the problems in the first place. Our focus should be on solving our problems one at a time. And my take in terms of the climate change is that we have to start organizing ourselves. We don't build structures, we have to start building. I don't know why we are sending people to go and learn about the CNG. Maybe we should go and learn how the Chinese build, how they build bridges. We should start building things. We don't build underground structures, we don't build high rises enough. And so you can see that our nation is a kind of standing still. Our problem is not serious. That people prescribe a lot of things like if it's a lot of serious. It's not a very serious problem. You just have to unchain the country, and you see all these things will be solved. And in terms of the climate change issue, it's not. It might actually favor us. Recently, when there was a kind of change in the climate in the Sahara Desert, it became green. It started turning green.
All right.
We don't know, because we don't necessarily know how many of us are actually doing the research. They are the ones, the West is telling us what we need to do. We need to change our energy sources. After they've already done their own, then they say we should not consume the kind of energy that they consume to build their own economies. So I'm quite skeptical when we focus on climate change, because we have bigger fishes to fry. Right. We have to get ourselves out of the mess we are in before we start worrying about climate change. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, forefathers. Now, KJ, let me come to you. KJ, quickly, a wrap on the show. We are looking at climate-related diseases in Africa, like vector-borne diseases like malaria and dengue fever. By the way, I understand that in some parts of, when there was flooding in New Orleans, I understand that there were pockets of malaria, mosquito bites here and there. How do you people handle it in Maryland? Is there malaria, and how does climate-related illnesses affect the Maryland population? Please, a wrap on this. Can we also put together your concluding thoughts, because we are desperately running out of time?
There's nothing like I've not whelmed, because already I have the malaria parasite, so I'm not feeling that. But yes, they said there was pockets of malaria. Certain people suffer that. But you see, they also have how to deal with that here. These people have planned out their life, and I agree with forefather. They planned out their life, and now they're telling us about climate change. The climate is always changing, according to the word of Donald Trump. The climate is always changing, so there's nothing. Let us face how to develop our people. Okay. When we develop our people, then we can now begin to talk about climate change. Let us settle first to be a nation. These people are already nations. They sit down in a meeting, they come out with a proposal, and they sell it to the whole world, especially Africa. And we must come to a point where we speak with one voice. Okay. This constant division of Africans and the policies in Africa is not going to help any of us.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, KJ. Thank you very much. Now, Flagship, let me come to you. Can you help us make a sense of how climate-related diseases are affecting people in Atlanta? Quick one. And let's have your concluding talk on the topics we talked about.
Well, over here, we have institutions that are set up to study these things, research on them, tell us what has changed, what we need to do new, and what we need to put behind us. Yeah, we just don't wait and sit for these events to happen. We plan ahead for them. We know what they are. At least technology has been able to help us to forecast these things, and we know what actions to take. We know how to divert floods. We know how to raise our water levels when they are low. If they are very, very low, we reduce our water consumption. All of these things we put together to make sure we make life easy and good for the people here. In conclusion, I hear that, and I'll go back to Tinubu's trip to France. I hear that one of the dividends of this trip that he just had to France is that Macron has promised Tinubu that he's going to invest over 300 million euros in training 150 Nigerians to come and learn how to teach French so that they can go back to Nigeria to teach French. I don't see how this is going to benefit us. Nigerians, stand against this. You need to speak out and do not let these people override you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Flagship. Now, Sho, back to you. Sho, can you help us understand how climate change, is affecting health issues in the UK? And let's have your concluding thoughts.
All right. Talking of climate change, health issues in the UK, you talk about air pollution. Those are the sort of things that we'll talk about. Air pollution, flooding, wildfires, and, issues like that. And these are not things that they are not aware of. Like one of the panelists said, in the West, they are not reactionary. They prepare for these things. They do researches, and that affects the policies that they make. And this is why sometimes when it comes to African leaders or African rulers, whatever you want to call them, it's quite a shame because we don't have to invent much. A lot of these things have been done by people. So we can just copy, modify and paste. We don't have to do the big thinking. Most of the thinking has been done for us. We can see how people before us have done it. And that's why it really irks me when I hear people say, oh, America has had their independence for whatever years, Nigeria's only 60. Yes, we're 60 or 64, whatever we are, but we can copy from other people. Let's copy the good things they've done. They've gone before us, and they've done some of this heavy lifting, if you want to call it that, call it that. So we can copy the things they've done, some of their approach to issues. So the things that are peculiar to Africa, we can look at what they've done, to say, what's the solution? Or how do we mitigate this? How do we mitigate? Okay, let's plan. So part of the planning is research. We research, how does this affect us? Let's put some of our findings into the policies we'll make so that when it comes, it's not a surprise to say, oh, there's been a flooding and people say it's natural disaster, you can't plan against. Of course, you can plan against it. So in the UK, they plan against all these things, pollution, and that's why they're saying they want to go green, no to fossil fuel. Of course, I agree that they've benefited from using fossil fuel, so it's convenient for them to tell us not to use it. But at least they've done what they have to do. So it's for us to do what we have to do as well. And in terms of my concluding thoughts, I would just like to appeal to President Tinubu to market Nigeria properly when it goes abroad. I've had people come after David Adeleke, popularly known as Davido, for saying what he said at the, wherever he went last week or 2 weeks ago. But I've listened to sound bites from President Tinubu's trip to the G20 when he was sounding almost like literally carrying a begging bowl and telling the world Nigeria is broke, we're poor, there's insecurity. That is demarketing Nigeria. So I'm quite surprised that the people who defend the president came for Davido for saying exactly what the president said. You listen to him in France, he was telling President Macron that, if you give a Nigerian child sandwich when they go to school, or you give them an egg, there will be no fear of learning. So it was basically saying all it takes to encourage a Nigerian child to go to school is to promise them an egg a day and they would go. So that is demarketing Nigeria as far as I'm concerned. So my appeal to him is when he goes out there, yes, he wants to say his truth, but as the chief marketer of Nigeria, he should employ better tactics.
All right, thanks so very much, Sho. Thanks for coming to the show. Now, Shogo, quick one and a wrap. Let's have your concluding thoughts. And please, if you can also chime in on the climate-related health issues. 1 minute, please.
Well, I think Nigeria is... we're affected by this climate change-driven health challenges, but we don't see them because we don't log our data. We don't capture anything. It's all over the place. Chad Basin, for example, that's just a simple example. It's dry. The place has dried up, and then there is a rash of diseases and sicknesses that follows from the fact that the water basin that provides water to millions of people.
And the migration that it feels.
Start migrating, which then has its own ripple effect, all of the violence and everything that we see, So all of those things are there. They're not myths. They're real. And one would hope that the government, would be decent enough to come up with some sort of a plan that would work against that. But then, how can one hope that when we're talking about this same government that can't even provide electricity? So in concluding thoughts, I think for me, it's that as the elite, everybody on this conversation, whether you're in Nigeria or you're in the diaspora, we are part of the Nigerian elite. We have to come together and say it's enough. Because, we're just going around in circles. We're not making any progress. Nothing has changed significantly in this country in 25 years. Nothing. With the exception of maybe GSM, which was an inevitability anyway, because we're connected to the world. So I think that the elite needs to come together. We've got to stop all of this rubbish about defending one politician or backing one party and not speaking the truth just because you belong to one tribe or one religion. We've got to stop all of that. Come together, determine what we want to see our country like in 10, 15 years, and push for it with a united voice. Enough is enough. If we don't do that, nothing's going to change. All right, thank you very much, Shegu. And this will be a very good place to anchor this show. I've been speaking with Mr. Shegu Shopwita, who is Chairman, Accountability, Candor and Transparency Network. And virtually, with Flagship. Flagship is a clinical research operations lead and business entrepreneur based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We also had KJ. KJ is a media production and training expert and joined us from Maryland in the United States. We also had Sho. Sho is an IT expert with interest in international politics and development. He also joined us from the UK. We also had Forefathers join from the UK. He's an engineer and is involved in technology, tech, with interest in geopolitics, philosophy, and security. Gentlemen, thanks for being on this show. In the show, this show comes up every Saturday between 3 to 5 p.m. Nigerian time and 11 a.m., Eastern Standard Time. We encourage you to click on the like button and subscribe to our page. On YouTube, we are Voice of the People TV, and on other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. You can also visit our website, www.vop.ng. Keep a date with us next week for another interesting edition, but that will be in December 2024. I have been your host, Chukwuma Okoro. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Are you ready to connect with distinguished Nigerians around the world?